Okay, I feel like people are just going to keep trickling in, but we can start with introductions and such as they come in. But hi, everyone, and welcome to the first year camp member meeting of the new year. We're super excited to have you all here. And this is my first meeting, so I'm excited to just hear about all the great work everyone's doing. We thought we could go around first and do just a round of introductions so everyone's familiar with who's on this call. And if you could just give your name, the organization you're working with, your location, and then something you're grateful for. And we can just, if you could just call on the next person, that way we don't have to totally monitor who hasn't gone. But I can start. My name is Claire Casanadini, and I'm the Civic Spark Fellow with SBC, and I'm currently in Tahoe City on Washoe land. And something I'm grateful for is the sun after a rainy day. Yeah. And if Brittany, if you want to go next.
Absolutely. Thanks, Claire. Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Bennessy. I'm the Government and Community Affairs Director for Sierra Business Council, coming to you today from Truckee on the ancestral lands of the Washoe people. And something I'm grateful for today is the grooming that happens in Donner Memorial State Park that makes for some really nice morning runs. And I'm going to pop it over to Julia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Julia Hart. I'm a policy analyst for the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, a state agency that works with Sierra Business Council on various forest health initiatives. I am coming to you today from Nevada City on Nisenan land, and I'm grateful for all of the precipitation we've been getting, and hopefully we'll have a good year for rain in general. And I will pass it along to Emily Blackmer.
Hi there, everyone. Julia, just as an FYI, you sounded far away. So I don't know if there's anything up with your audio. My name is Emily Blackmer. I'm a project manager with Sierra Business Council, also in Truckee on Washoe land. And I was grateful for the long weekend for a little bit of a mental reset. That was helpful for me. And let's see, Meredith.
Hi, everyone. My name is Meredith Anderson. I am with the Sierra Nevada Alliance. I work on climate planning with them. So I'm standing in for our executive director, Jenny Hatch. My location, I'm in South Lake Tahoe, also on Washoe land. And something I am grateful for, my dog finally understanding how to tour with me in the backcountry. So that's been a lot of fun lately.
Meredith, do you want to pass it on to someone else?
Oh, yep, I can do that. I will pass it on to Chris.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Mertens. I'm with the California Tahoe Conservancy, located in Truckee, also on the ancestral land of the Washoe tribe. I am grateful for my dog. He makes me happy every day. And I'll pass it over to my colleague, Whitney Brennan.
Hi, my name is Whitney Brennan, and I also work for the Tahoe Conservancy. I'm located in South Lake Tahoe. And yeah, I'm just grateful for my family to be able to spend time with them outdoors, even though some of the other options are limited with COVID, but it's nice to spend time outdoors. How about Lauren?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Knox. I'm the city manager with the city of Portola. I am grateful for long weekends as well. I know that was already stated, but it really is nice to be able to recharge. And just so that everyone knows, I have a whole bunch of meetings packed together. So if I drop off, it's because of that. But I wanted to just check in and see what's going on here. All right, I will pass it off to Scott Warner.
Sure. Hi, thank you. Hi, I'm Scott Warner. I'm a hydrogeologist with BBJ Group. I used to be with another firm when I first started as a member here with with Sierra Camp back in Diana Madsen days. I split my time between Truckee and the Washoe and the Bay Area and the Miwok ancestral lands, and I'm very happy to be here again. And I'm grateful for a lot of things. One of them is the spectacular landscape of California, from the highlands to the valleys to the lakes to the coast and everywhere in between. It's Earth always wins, and I'm happy to be part of that. And let's see, how about I will pass on to Devin.
Thank you. Good morning, afternoon, whatever it is, everyone. Devin Middlebrook with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency here in Lake Tahoe. And something I'm grateful for, oh man, there's very limited things, but it is nice that the weather's starting to get a little bit warmer and the days are getting longer. And we've been really into Nordic skiing this year, so that's been super fun. And I'm not sure who else has gone already to pass it on to, but I don't know if Meredith Anderson's gone yet.
I've already gone.
Someone who hasn't gone, jump in and save me.
I'll step in here. This is Jill Sanford with Sierra Business Council. I'm communications manager here, and I am helping out on the back end, so therefore I know who hasn't gone. Let's see, let's go ahead and pass it off to Hardy Bullock, please.
Good morning. My name is Hardy Bullock. I'm the 5th District Supervisor for Nevada County, and I'm in Truckee today. I'm grateful for my family, for the snow, and many other things. Good to be on this first call with y'all. Who else hasn't gone, Jill?
This is Angel. I can go next. I haven't.
Angel, yes, please. Thanks.
Angel Green, Senior Planner and Project Manager at Placer County Planning Division, located in Auburn, but I actually live in Sacramento. And something that I'm grateful for is, I'm going to say that a breath of fresh air that I think 2021 is going to bring us. I'm optimistic and looking forward to this new year, even though, boy, we're already into February. All right, not sure if anyone else needs to go, but I'll pass it on.
Yeah, hi, I haven't gone yet. My name is Melanie Conti. I'm with the town of Truckee. This is my first time also with this group, so I'm happy to see some familiar faces and learn more about what everyone's doing in the region. I'm in Truckee, and I'm gonna have to put a third tally on grateful for long weekends. That extra time is always appreciated.
Thanks, Melanie. And I think there's maybe a few more people that haven't gone if you just want to jump in. Or maybe that was everyone. Okay.
I missed the first couple. Melanie, Lauren, I think you went, but I'm not totally sure.
Okay, awesome.
We got everyone.
Well,
Great.
we'll just move right along then. But thanks for that. Seems like we all love our outdoor spaces and our dogs. So that's wonderful. Yeah, so moving into Sierra Camp updates, some exciting news. We have a new website thanks to Jill and Brittany and other SBC team members' incredible work. And so the old Sierra Camp website will be migrating onto the new website, including all of the resources. So you can keep your eyes open for that. And another big thing that's happened that I think everyone's aware of, we have sent communications around it, but Simone has left SBC and moved on to Portland and is doing great things there. So we are transitioning Sierra Camp leadership, and we have a new member, Emily Blackmer, who will talk a little bit about the vulnerability assessment, who will be working with Sierra Camp and then myself as well, kind of at the helm until we get somebody more permanent into the position. But yeah, sort of stay tuned for that. And then Emily, if you want to give your update.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Nice to, well, I see some familiar faces and glad to have you all here. As Claire said, I am taking over from Simone as the project leader for the Sierra wide climate vulnerability assessment. And just, I'm sure that this group has heard a bit about the project in the past, but just to provide a little refresher, this assessment is looking across the entire Sierra region at the environmental, social, and economic vulnerabilities to climate change for all of the jurisdictions in our region. And this is a slightly new and innovative approach on a vulnerability assessment that vulnerability assessments typically, focus more on the natural vulnerabilities and kind of the direct results of that. And we're trying to extend our assessment out to look at the social and economic vulnerabilities to try and get a picture of what some of the downstream impacts of climate change may be for a region. So we're currently building out a profile for each jurisdiction that looks at their a set of environmental indicators, economic indicators, and social indicators. And then beginning this spring, we are going to be doing kind of a multi-pronged engaged stakeholder and community engagement process that will include some community workshops assessing adaptive capacity and those workshops are building on previous efforts that took place in the integrated regional water management regions. And then we'll also be doing a survey and some focus groups, again, regionally. So that's starting this spring, probably continuing through the end of the year. And then there is also will be a technical assistance element where SBC will be available to help jurisdictions with planning and project identification using the results of the vulnerability assessment to kind of understand what those key vulnerabilities are and how to address them. And so just putting this on folks' radar, we know that you are climate leaders in your respective organizations. And we'd love to have you engaged in this process in any number of ways. The community engagement work, we would be very interested in partnering with anyone to host workshops or focus groups or to help get the word out to members of your organizations or jurisdictions about participating in that. So if anyone is interested in collaborating or co-hosting, definitely drop me or Claire a line. We would love to hear from you about that and explore what that might look like and how it could be helpful to both of us. And then as we move into the technical assistance components of this project on the back end, keep that in mind that that is a resource that can be available. If there's extra capacity that we can provide to help do some planning or project identification, that is something that we will be positioned to do. So I think that is kind of just the overview. If folks have any questions, I am happy to answer them. And I'll also put my email in the chat if anyone wants to reach out later.
Yeah, awesome. And then if people have questions throughout this that you think of, you can just drop them in the chat and we can address them later. But seems like nobody has anything. Okay, we'll move along. Okay, Brittany, if you want to go ahead and get into the legislative update.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. So you'll recall that last year's legislative session ended tumultuously, and while understandably it was still a disappointment to see the lack of climate adaptation and mitigation and natural resource policies that made it to the finish line. So seeing the fast start that we've had with this 2021-22 legislative session has created a lot of opportunities and some reasons for optimism for climate adaptation and mitigation policy in California. Starting off with the governor's budget proposal that was released last month. You've probably heard about the $1 billion forest and wildfire resilience package included there. The budget proposal also included a cap and trade expenditure plan, as well as a rollout strategy for the governor's zero emissions vehicle infrastructure scaling across the state. But the real focus that we've been advocating for is on this $1 billion for forest and wildfire resilience. It includes $323 million in early action funding that's spread across funding for CAL FIRE's Forest Health and Legacy grant programs, directed funding to the California Tahoe Conservancy and the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, specific funding pockets for field breaks, community hardening, and the Climate Catalyst Fund, which you'll recall was included in Governor Newsom's original budget proposal last year, which would be a really great investment tool for increasing innovative climate adaptation and mitigation project opportunities, kind of helping to backstop initial investments and reduce the concerns around a full return on investment. So we've really been focusing a lot of our time early in this legislative session on advocating for the immediate passage of that early action funding. Something of note is that, the legislature is frequently driven by deadlines, and for a mechanism like an early action funding allocation, there isn't a specific deadline. So it's really up to us and the public and our partners to be pushing legislators to take action on this. It could be the difference between funding getting allocated in March as part of an early allocation, or it could be delayed until October as part of the standard 2021-22 budget process. So that's something that we'll be talking about and that you'll see in camp member updates and Sierra Business Council communications in general. Something that we've heard from some of our climate adaptation partners, including within the ARCA group, is, outside of the Sierra, there is some disappointment in this amount of funding being allocated specifically to wildfire and forest resilience. Concerns that there isn't enough focus being given to other climate impacts such as extreme heat and other impacts that hit our urban areas harder. So in those conversations, we've really been focusing on messaging the importance of maintaining this amount of funding, that a full $1 billion does not go far enough. It's a really important foundation for taking meaningful action for our forests and reducing wildfire risk across the state. And that we should really be pushing to increase the size of the pot overall for climate adaptation and mitigation efforts. Making this $1 billion for wildfire and forest health resilience a foundation, not only for wildfire as a climate impact going forward, but for other impacts that are hitting California. So we're hoping that we can bring on some of those partners. So far, it's sounding pretty hopeful that people understand that this is an amount of funding that is needed, that it's not about reducing the amount for wildfire funding and putting it elsewhere. It's that we should be headlining the importance of more funding needed across all climate impacts in California. So moving on from the budget proposal, we're hoping to see significant action taken within the next month on an early action proposal. Hearings are currently underway. And we'll keep you all updated on opportunities for action, comment letter sign on, participation in hearings. If you'd be interested, please let me know. We can keep you apprised of when those hearings are happening. And then everyone's favorite subject over the last 2 years has been a climate resilience bond. And unsurprisingly, after its failure to advance last summer, we did see the reintroduction of SB 45, which you'll recall was the original Senate climate bond vehicle, originally authored by Senators Allen and Stern. Its principal author is now Senator Portantino. The language is almost the exact same as what was in the last iteration of SB 45. So it's a $5.51 billion climate bond with $2.2 billion allocated for wildfire and forest health, and specific funding allocations for our conservancies. Sierra Business Council had a meeting with Senator Stern to get a kind of a temperature check on how much of a priority this is for him. He definitely confirmed that this is a major priority for he and other Senate leaders. However, one of our original strategies for this year was to get the bond authorized in 2021 so that we could focus 2022 on building a really strategic and impactful campaign. It is sounding like, based on the governor's political focuses being elsewhere, notably the recall election realities that's looming, and the lack of support from the Assembly leadership for a bond, it's unlikely that they're going to see the bond get authored this first year of the legislative session. So while that's unfortunate for our goal, for our priorities, and for how we can mount a successful campaign in the Sierra, something that we're still going to push for, Senator Stern's take was that this is an opportunity to make SB 45 into a really foundational climate adaptation goal measure that sets the stage for really meaningful climate action going forward, that reduces the amount of infighting across parts of the state and across different climate impacts. So he's going to be looking, the Senate leadership is going to be looking for stakeholder engagement, for really convening a forum of climate leaders. So this is something that we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on, that we'll be engaging with the Senator's office and with their chief consultant on their Natural Resources Committee on how that strategy is going to play out going forward. So a little bit of a opportunity and a little bit of a downside, but overall hopeful. And then on the Assembly bill, we were hoping to have Assembly language to be able to describe today. Unfortunately, that has not been introduced yet. However, we have received confirmation. We definitely know that Assemblymember Garcia and Mullins' offices have been hard at work on recrafting AB 3256, which was the Assembly's climate resilience bond from last year. It's sounding like it's going to be a larger package. It's going to include a focus on regional climate adaptation planning, which AB 3256 did, and is going to have a more of a larger pot for doling out to conservancies than SB 45. So we will keep you guys apprised of that. And then finally, something that has been a takeaway from the budget proposal process and the bills that we've seen introduced from the legislature so far has been a real focus on regional climate adaptation planning. You might recall last year's AB 2621 from Assemblymember Mullen, which would have directed the creation of climate adaptation collaboratives. We've seen a few bills introduced so far this year that mirror or relate to that bill, and we are expecting Mullen's office to reintroduce 2621. Right now, the most fully fleshed bill that's been introduced is AB 11, which would direct the Strategic Growth Council to work on the creation of 12 regional climate planning authorities throughout the state, and would require funding for those authorities to develop climate adaptation plans for those regions. For this reason, ARCA as an entity has been pretty highly engaged in some of the offices working on these bills, including AB 11. If you look at the bill summary, you'll see ARCA get a specific call out on the importance of recognizing existing climate collaboratives throughout the state and existing regional boundaries within those collaboratives. ARCA's legislative subcommittee has been working on developing the legislative principles that were included in the agenda that was sent to all of you. These principles include a statement of the problem, the guiding goals and principles for ARCA in the development of a regional climate collaborative state law. Those principles are based around this three-pronged approach, what they've been calling this three-stooled approach, which is that any state law should one, direct guidelines around what a regional climate collaborative network is made up of, develop regulations for regional climate adaptation plans, and provide local science technical advisory services. That funding is needed for the existence of regional climate collaboratives, and that these should be integrated with existing collaboratives and work collaboratively with other planning agencies such as water agencies or forest agencies. So I wanted to see, one, I know that's a lot of information that I just threw at you guys. So any questions on anything I've touched on so far, as well as to see if folks had a chance to review the legislative principles provided by ARCA, see if anyone has any questions or concerns. Right now, the intent is for CAMP's logo to be included on it. So wanted to check in with all of you and see that, that there's buy-in on these principles. So any initial thoughts or questions? All right, well, I'm happy to, I'll drop my email in the chat as well. If you have a chance to review those legislative principles and have any, especially if you have any concerns, please let me know as soon as possible and we will work them out with ARCA. Otherwise, feel free to send any questions my way about anything that I've talked about today or about the legislative principles themselves. And then before we go ahead.
Just sorry to cut you off. I didn't unmute quick enough, but I looked at the principles. They look really good. I think this is an important thing for CAMP to remain engaged on, because there's just so much focus in the legislature on taking a regional approach to some of these climate issues, wildfire being the one that's, you know, the topic everybody's talking about now. But I think that having kind of the ability for regions to figure out what their highest priority needs are related to, you know, reducing climate impacts is an important way, just politically, for folks to feel like they're getting, you know, the amount of funding and things that everybody needs. Kind of the idea being growing the pie instead of having to have a you know, a fight over statewide funding programs every year and things like that. So I think this is a important framework for laying that out, not only for you know, for right now, but also into the future.
Definitely, I completely agree. And actually, I think the concerns that some of the ARCA members have raised around the focus on wildfire and resilience and being a part of those conversations has actually been a real reminder of the benefit of CAMP's involvement in ARCA, because that's where those, you know, within the Sierra Nevada, within our forestry partners, everyone had so much stoke around the budget proposal. And then you start speaking to people from outside the region who are working on really similar big picture items as we are, and you see that level of concern and you see that disappointment. And finding the common ground there is how we're going to get, you know, these statewide initiatives advanced. So I'd also, you know, encourage everyone to remember that as part of your CAMP membership, you're welcome to join on ARCA member calls, as well as the ARCA Adaptation Policy Working Group, where we're having some of these conversations. And please reach out to me if you'd like the calendar information for those meetings. And then the last thing before we move on, I just wanted to see if there was anything that I failed to cover today, anything that anyone else has been working on or heard about related to state policy that you think would be worth sharing with the group. All right.
Awesome.
Hand it back to you,
Thank you,
Claire.
Brittany. That was awesome. So we're going to move into the classic round robin member updates in a second, but we're also going to send out a poll really quickly. Oh, perfect. Looks like it popped up. So if you could all answer this, we can share out the responses. Jill, will that just pop up?
Yeah, it looks like almost everyone has voted. So I'll go ahead and end the polling and share the results here. Which it looks like everyone said at least a little bit, 50% said a little bit, 50% said a lot.
Interesting. Awesome. And maybe people can kind of talk more about this in their member updates if it's applicable. But similar sort of to the introductions, you don't need to call on anybody. We can just do it more casually since it is a small group. But if people want to go around and hit on these questions and discuss work that they have been working on. And then we can do a Q&A, but also just since this is a small group, if people have questions, I think you can unmute yourself and ask them. You can also put them in the chat and we can sort of monitor that. And at the end, we can have a more designated question and answer time. But I do think maybe just based on this group, it could be best to ask questions as people are doing their updates. So I don't know if somebody would like to go first, but we can just get into these. Does anyone want to volunteer?
I can go first. Okay. So how we've been navigating COVID. I mean, I think we've done pretty well. It definitely changed how we do work. Everybody's remote in our state agency. But I feel like we transitioned pretty seamlessly. So I think we're doing fairly well. It's definitely just slowed down things. Everyone has changed priorities. And since we work with a lot of other agencies, it slowed us down. A lot of our work is multi-agency, multi-jurisdiction. And so, you know, if anyone else gets impacted, like the federal or state or regional, then we also get impacted. Our project gets slowed down if other agencies are slowed down or have different staffing priorities. But we still have been plugging away at our Tahoe Climate Adaptation Action Portfolio. We've been working on that a lot this year, trying to make sure we're aligning well with state priorities for both California and Nevada, since it covers the whole basin from both states. And we're hoping to get that out later this spring. So we'll be having a larger portfolio document that has all the actions that different agencies are committing or working on right now for climate adaptation. And we'll have this primer, which will be a shorter document that's kind of high level, talking about the whole process and some of the high level results and work that the basin is doing for climate adaptation. So successes and challenges, I think, I think the fact that we keep moving along and getting this document moving is a success. But yeah, it's definitely been challenging. I think we're definitely, with the bi-state thing, it makes it hard because we're trying to work with both states and make sure we're kind of aligning with state priorities, which may be a little different in different states, and also with TRPA, which kind of covers the whole basin, and make sure we're all on the same page. And I think I'll pass it on to Chris too, because he also works for the agency, just more on legislative side, see if he has anything else he wants to add.
Sure. Yeah, just quickly, I think the one climate related priority that I'm focused on in the legislature this year, Brittany touched on pretty much all of them, but specifically as part of that $1 million in the governor's budget, the part of that proposal includes $12 million to the Tahoe Conservancy to reduce fuels and create resilience on Conservancy owned lands. We own about 6,700 acres of land in the basin, and that $12 million would enable us to treat about 750 acres a year for the next 5 years. And most of that land is urban lots, quarter-acre urban lots, or larger parcels, surrounding urban parts of the Tahoe, California side of the Tahoe Basin. And so we definitely see that as a climate goal, climate-driven priority, reducing wildfire risk in the basin, which much of it is high risk wildfire areas. And so we're doing a lot of work just to educate folks on the importance of that funding, and really a lot of the funding in the governor's wildfire package, as Brittany mentioned.
Thanks, Chris. Does somebody else want to jump in with their update?
I can jump in. So I'm with the town of Truckee. First question, how have we been navigating COVID? I think, like everyone else, we've adapted to, work from home schedule. And a lot of our funding has shifted towards, business support and some housing assistance programs. So, some of our sustainability projects have been put on hold, but we were still able in July to complete our climate adaptation plan. And we are still working on our climate action plan. That is supposed to be integrated into our general plan update, which we are also still working on. So that is still, we're plugging away at that. The general plan update has been going slower than we thought. It's a long process in general, but with COVID thrown in there, it's been a little bit slower. So that is that. What else? What have been our climate priorities and projects recently? I think that's it. Our climate adaptation plan and our climate action plan are the two focuses. We have a new council and a new town manager as well, but they have continued to make sustainability and climate projects a priority for us. So although there's been some pauses, we're still working to keep those projects on the forefront. We did complete an electric vehicle project this year. We have new stations installed in downtown Truckee, and we're also working on another plan to get chargers installed here at Town Hall and procure a town electric vehicle. So that's exciting. And that project is partly grant funded. Yeah, I think that's mostly it. We're also able to launch a new website this year, which includes a sustainability dashboard that allows us to keep track of different climate actions and, be transparent to the community and hold ourselves accountable. So that's pretty cool. That's on keeptruckeegreen.org. We launched that in October. And then I guess one thing to touch on, kind of a state update. Some of you might already be aware, but the CEC has approved our petition for an exemption in solar panels on new residential builds with snow loads with structural requirements. So that may apply to some other groups here in the region. You might already be aware of that, but that is new. I think that was approved last week. So that is maybe useful to some others. So I think that that's about it from the town of Truckee.
Thank you, Melanie.
I'll go. This is Lauren Knox with the City of Portola. Melanie, actually, thank you for pointing that out on the snow load piece. I wasn't aware of that, so it's something I will definitely look into, so thank you for that. In terms of how we've been navigating COVID-19, I mean, again, the same as a lot of folks in terms of making some changes to the way we interact with the public, but for the most part, we are such a small entity that we really can't all work from home. So that really hasn't changed too much what we've been doing with regards to our location of work. We have changed, City Hall isn't open to the public. We have meetings scheduled for people who maybe need to meet in person, but we're really trying to push people to be able to, you know, go online more, give us a call, email us, or utilize our Dropbox services, which hasn't been utilized heavily in the past, and people are more aware of it now, which I think is really helpful. So I think there's actually some positives that can come out of having to change the way we operate. Our climate priority is really on wildfire resilience. We've had some wildfires, obviously, especially in the past year, that were very, very close to home. So we are very antsy and nervous and trying to do everything we can to make sure that if and when a wildfire is to hit this area, that we're as ready as we can be. So we are focusing a bit of energy on that piece. But again, with a really small entity, it's really hard to be able to have any sort of focus on some of these items. Another project we are looking into are the charging stations as well in our downtown kind of Old Town area. When we talked with a group in the past, there was actually kind of a black hole, if you will, of charging stations down this way. So we're hoping that that can kind of fulfill a need. So that could be something exciting coming up. And then I think that's pretty much all I have again in terms of successes and challenges. It's really just, we're so short-staffed that just navigating anything is really difficult. And then you add in COVID and it's a lot for us to take care of, but we are doing what we can to stay afloat. And I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Lauren.
I can go next. Again, I'm with the Sierra Nevada Alliance, but my work is mostly with the city of South Lake Tahoe. So with COVID-19, I guess, just adjusting to everything and everyone being remote, like everyone else has said. Our climate priorities and projects. So like I said, I work mostly with the city of South Lake Tahoe and have been working on kind of climate and energy planning and implementation. So the city, I wrote in the city's first climate action plan that was adopted in October of 2020. So now we're working on mostly pursuing funding opportunities for the strategies outlined in the plan. And then, successes and challenges. Everything with the city is climate-wise is still pretty much in motion. There will be municipal solar through this Solar Energy and Economic Development Fund, also known as SEED, if any of you have heard of it, probably installing late 2021, early 2022. And then also we're looking into doing energy and efficiency improvements and electrification measures kind of citywide through financing agreements. So looking into that right now, and that's kind of quick update.
I can go. Devin from Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. I think echoing a lot of stuff that was said by folks in terms of operation, working from home, remote. When COVID hit, our organization really pivoted and took a lead role in helping coordinate all of the recreation sites, land managers, and their response to COVID and crowds and trash and litter. So I spent a lot of my time in 2020 working on recreation issues. we are still on track to update the region's, the Tahoe Basin's greenhouse gas inventory, thanks to a grant from the Tahoe Conservancy. We actually are having a webinar on that on March 5th. So looking forward to that. And then, we're still on track to work on updating our sustainability plan, climate plan, based on the new greenhouse gas inventory results, the vulnerability assessment the Conservancy did. But budgets are going to be tight. We've received cuts from the state of Nevada. So we're really on a shoestring budget. So the things that have funding are moving forward. The things that don't have funding are kind of slowed down. But I'm really looking forward to the potential of all the electric vehicle infrastructure funding through the state of California. There's really an opportunity to get more infrastructure on the ground, as several people have mentioned. So I'm going to be following that electric vehicle money very closely. I like Energy Commission grants because they typically don't require a match and they pay for staff time.
This is Angel. I can go next. Angel with Placer County. So how have we been navigating with the COVID-19? I think, the county did fairly well. Staff were able to transition pretty quickly to work from home. We did have to make some adjustments for our public hearing items, but I think we've got that all buckled down now, taking advantage of our GHG reductions, being able to work from home. So hoping to calculate those benefits here soon. But what have been your climate priorities and projects recently? So, I think one of the issues early in 2020, the county was pretty excited to bring forward its first climate action plan or sustainability plan to the board, which was adopted in January of 2020. We were hoping to really kick off there rather quickly, but with COVID, that essentially kind of slowed down the implementation process just a little bit. But we've taken the opportunity this last year to focus our efforts on incorporating the adaptation strategies. We had 111 that were identified in the sustainability plan. And we've been recently going through the process of incorporating those into the safety element. So we have here soon, we'll be releasing the public review draft of our safety element that will incorporate those adaptation strategies as were adopted by our board, but then also addressing some of the recent regulatory requirements, addressing wildfire evacuation routes and all of those good things. So hoping to get that done here soon. But we're also we're moving forward with different components in the sustainability plan as it relates to greenhouse gas reductions. And some of the ones that I'm hearing mentioned here, we're also looking forward to moving, getting our implementation here kicked off soon. But we're in the process of developing an electric vehicle readiness plan. So sounds very similar to what folks are doing here. We've got a local greenhouse gas offset program that we're actually in the early discussions on right now, but looking for opportunities to manage whether it's VMT or greenhouse gas offsets that would be required through the CEQA review process, being able to find programs and projects that we could fund locally that can help demonstrate VMT and GHG reductions. We're thinking the best way to do that is under the county's proposal for a local greenhouse gas offset program. We're very, very early in the process here. Our sustainability plan did identify a greenhouse gas reduction strategy that would allow the county to further investigate and look into the establishment of this program, but certainly is a huge undertaking. To my knowledge, no other local jurisdiction in the state has done this, but it certainly is an item that I know a number of folks are looking at starting. So let's see what else. Successes and challenges that we've been facing. Again, we've certainly seen a lot of success here with COVID, allowing us to transition into telecommuting, finding ways to work together collectively with other agencies and districts, using our telecommute options. So certainly a lot of advantages or successes there, being able to overcome our challenges. But yeah, I'll go ahead and leave it there.
Thanks, Angel. I think left is Hardy, Scott, and Julia. If any of you want to give your updates.
This is Hardy. I don't have any specific updates, although I will mention one of the initiatives I have for 2021 is convening a group of leaders, both organizations and governmental, leadership around the peak period visitation challenges we face, more of a conservation movement, not necessarily directly related to the climate piece, but we're just having this tremendous amount of impact, trash congestion, trailhead, water quality. So I'm going to try and convene this group on a quarterly basis, and we're going to try and roll it out sometime in March. So that's kind of the initiative that we're working on from the county priority level. At least from a tactical perspective, there will be longer term strategic priorities rolled up in that, but we haven't really promoted those or talked about those publicly yet. But anyway, that's kind of what we're facing in the District 5 office here for Nevada County. And I welcome any of the insight you may have. Welcome to talk with me or any of the staff members at Nevada County as we play a role in all the things we've discussed here today.
Hi, it's Scott. I can go quickly in between some project matters. So, I've been, how's our organization been navigating? Well, we've been working at home now for 10, 11 months as most people. And while 2019 was a big travel year for me, 2020, I wish I got Zoom miles because I think I've been on more Zoom calls than just about anything. But as I mentioned just in the chat, we had almost a rush of, I work as a consultant, water resources and environmental consulting, and we almost had a rush, I'd say, of excessive work at the end of the year on property, business transactions, diligence type projects, and a lot of that had to do with water resources vulnerability and potential climate impact. Part of that was because of the fear of changes with I shouldn't say fear, just a change of administration politics stuff. People are trying to get things taken care of before the new year came around. But I anticipate that to really continue into 2021 with even more emphasis on water resource vulnerability and climate impacts to that. I do a fair amount of work in the Mono Basin and actually down toward Owens Lake as well. And so water resource issues and sustainable groundwater plans and all that has been a big deal. So COVID hasn't really changed that. It's only changed how we do business in terms of trying to get out to the field. A lot more remote sensing technology has come into play, which I think is something that we're all even learning more to do. And so even in forest lands and trying to understand potential wildfire danger, we're learning how to navigate in a different fashion right now. So I think that's going to be continuing, and I suspect that many of your organizations will be doing that a lot more too. I'm also, this is an interesting thing. I know that, through the various climate collaboratives and other both agency and private organizations, there are a ton of different tools out there. And I think because we're all at home in front of our computers, we're seeing those more and more so. And essentially, COVID has forced us to focus in on which tools are better to use than others. And I think 2021 will kind of be a time to take a breath and really understand all the different, GIS and other related tools and technologies and databases that are out there, because it almost becomes overwhelming because there's so much, right, to try and keep track of. So I think CAMP can actually, you've already taken the big lead in kind of putting out ones that are important. Maybe that becomes the next generation of webinars or presentations that show the tools that are best, the ones that we can use that are most reliable, et cetera. So, kind of with every disaster, there are opportunities, I guess, and maybe this is kind of one of the things that I'm looking at as trying to get better at understanding and doing and learning about going forward. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Mhm.
I think we have just one more person, if I'm not mistaken. Julia, if you want to give your update.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was told I had some audio issues before. We have been working diligently throughout COVID-19, as many of you probably know. We started working from home, gosh, almost a year ago, but have been continuing moving grants forward with our Prop 68 funding, and continuing to award grants. We are looking forward to seeing what we get from the wildfire and forest resilience budget package. We're slated to receive 20 million this current fiscal year and 50 million next. We're already working on grant guidelines to bring to our board at our March board meeting. We understand that the budget probably won't be passed by then, but just trying to get out ahead of it and be as prepared as we possibly can. I've been working with a lot of partners, including some of you guys on the call, to get projects ready to hopefully be granted. But overall, I mean, COVID has definitely affected our work, but I'm proud of our team that we continue to move forward and are just really seeing how the budget plays out this year. Thanks.
Thanks, Julia. It's really awesome and inspiring work given the circumstances. So thank you everyone for sharing. So we talked about maybe having a Q&A. I'm not sure, nobody jumped in with questions or anything during the presentation, but I do want to give folks a chance to ask each other questions or to clarify or anything like that. I think this is a great opportunity to leverage what other people are doing or get input from others. So just if anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask questions or use the chat, whatever works best.
Not really a question, but I would comment, Angel Green mentioned for Placer County looking at a local carbon offset market. And I think that's just super cool and interesting. And it's definitely one of the projects that I'm going to be following, and interesting to see how that works out, because obviously the Sierra has such a carbon stock, but we have way too many trees. So the amount of carbon we're storing in our forest probably isn't sustainable at this point. So how does that kind of equation all trickle down? But I think being able to put an economic value to that carbon is just another piece in that puzzle, and getting our forests actually treated and the work done in the forest that we need to be more resilient, because we're starting to talk about it in those economic capitalist sense. So I'm really excited to see where that project evolves. Just a thought and comment.
Thanks, Devin. If I could just follow up on that, and I'm happy to chat with you more offline, but as you may know, the county does also have a number of biomass and other types of strategies within its sustainability plan. I am also aware that the Air District has previously developed some protocols that we might be able to use as it relates to biomass, and looking at other opportunities for reducing woody waste. It would be my hope that if we're successful in developing this local offset program, that we could further identify other projects within the county that help to support getting that woody waste out, and then looking at the economic advantage that, can we convert that into clean energy and what have you. So definitely more to come on that. I can share with you, I've got a meeting with our planning director here tomorrow to get him up to speed. We've got meetings in place with our community development director and a few other folks, again, to begin this conversation as to, how do we best mitigate for greenhouse gas reduction opportunities, whether it's VMT or reducing, wildfire risk. What should that program look like? So again, we're very early in the process. I will be putting together a focus group here soon, which will include, again, folks from the Air District who I know are also developing other protocols that we might be able to use. There does seem to be a bit of an effort also in Sacramento, because I know the Sacramento Air Quality Management District was not successful in getting a similar program supported by their board. So we do have a lot of opportunities here in Placer that other folks do not have as it relates to woody biomass and all that good stuff. So, but yeah, I'll definitely keep you in the loop there as to where we go with that.
Hey, I just to chime in, something Devin said caught my ear around quantifying carbon benefits in the Sierra, and I just want to make sure everybody saw that the University of Nevada, Reno came out with a report late last year showing that Sierra wetlands actually store as much carbon as per acre as tropical rainforests if they're healthy, if it's a healthy wetland. And I just, yeah, like in talking with folks, that's been a really helpful report to cite when kind of thinking about how to compare the work that, you know, many of us are doing in the Sierra with work that's happening even in other parts of the world. So I'll drop that link to that report in the chat box, but I want to make sure everybody had that if they need it.
And on that same note, if you're interested in carbon sequestration and the things Devin and Chris are talking about, I recommend going to the TRPA webinar that Devin was talking about, where they talk about not just the GHG inventory, but also calculating carbon sequestration in the basin.
Awesome.
Yeah, just put a link for that webinar in the chat.
Great. Yeah, and then as people think of things, we can continue to use the chat. Scott put a long message in there, and I think there's some other links if people want to take a look. We maybe just before we move into the last section, that's more of a discussion, we could have a short break, like 5 minutes for folks to use the bathroom or stretch their legs. And then we can reconvene and have more of a discussion around member values and workshop ideas. So how about we come back together at like 12:10 or 12:11, if that works for everyone. Okay, I'm not sure if everyone's back yet, just because lots of cameras are off, but we can just get started again. It's kind of nice to be able to see everyone's face, so I'm debating maybe ending the screen share, but I do want to give folks a chance to look at the top prompt. Yeah, but we wanted to have more of a discussion about what local and regional priorities are for climate adaptation and mitigation, and what folks are looking to get out of Sierra Camp. And so again, like this can just be sort of a free-for-all if you want to unmute yourself, and it can be more of a discussion that then leads into potential workshop ideas.
And I'll just jump in for a second, just maybe to kind of kick off the conversation. I noticed as everyone was providing their updates that there are definitely some themes around the climate work that folks have been doing. And I think that to some extent that's, you know, clearly reflective of our priorities, but I think, you know, this is also a chance to brainstorm and think a little bigger, or think outside the box about, you know, not only what we're working on, but what we could be working on, and what we really, you know, think would be transformative for our region in terms of climate adaptation and mitigation work. So just to summarize some of what I heard, EV infrastructure and forest and fire resilience definitely seem to be high on the list for many folks. Continuing efforts with climate action plans and climate adaptation plans across the board. And then some exploration of carbon offsets, greenhouse gas offsets, and then some work around solar, and, you know, either looking at how the state's solar panel requirement, municipal solar panel requirements, residential solar panel requirements fit into the life that we live in the Sierra and some of the climate realities that we have around here, and then also how we can build out more municipal solar infrastructure. So that seems to be what folks are working on, and we'd love to hear, you know, where you think we can be looking to, either expanding these efforts or delving into new territory.
I mean, I'll just say for me, what do I want to get out of the collaborative is I really enjoyed the smaller group that we got together for people working on vulnerability assessments and the adaptation process. And just so I think having more small groups where people are working on the same thing so they can bounce ideas at each other and learn what's working for some people, where they're getting funding. I think those are helpful.
Whitney, in the past, I know we were able, when back in the day of in-person meetings, there was a time when camp members were able to meet based on their subregions within the camp collaborative. Would it be helpful to break out future member meetings by regions, or are you thinking more by subject matter and focus?
I was thinking more by subject matter, because we had people in Mammoth and Truckee and different places that were all working on the same thing. They were all doing a vulnerability assessment. And so we just talked about, what do you do for outreach? How do you deal with this? So I think it's really topical for me. Yeah.
Perfect. I think that definitely aligns with camp's aims for what we, for value added in information sharing across members. So that's a great recommendation.
I can hop in real quick. For me, one of the main benefits I get from camp is hearing about state and federal legislation updates and things like that, and also to some extent hearing updates from other collaboratives in other parts of the state and what they're working on and issues they're grappling with. Although that's not as relevant as the legislative piece. But to the extent that those other regions are thinking about, policy decisions and things like that, that's always been really interesting to me to hear and really useful.
Thanks. I just wanted to share out Hardy commented before he jumped off that they're working with partners to define and certify sustainable outdoor rec economies and mitigate impacts from our peak period visitation and growth. And he recommended a workshop on that. That sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, Tahoe's definitely been dealing with the challenge of sustainable recreation under the COVID pandemic for sure. I think there's obvious connections to climate change. And I don't think anyone kind of anywhere in the world has quite figured it out. So it would be good to work on that. And I know Mammoth Lakes has done a ton around sustainable rec as well.
One of the question I have and is how often does CAMP interact with the other collaboratives? And that question is that I think of all the 7 state collaboratives out there, CAMP touches just about all of them, maybe except San Diego, from the standpoint of the watershed that the whole Sierra complex, Cascade complex contains. And so it seems that there may be some of these additional pathways or connections that we could take advantage of to maybe drive some of their, I know there's their urban upland, I don't want to say conflict, but it is a bit sometimes, it is in the financing from the state and other things. So maybe a workshop could actually focus on this, I'll call it CAMP collaborative or CAMP collaboration with others, and see where those common talking points are. That might help also in kind of some of the future areas. And then I wanted to throw in a kind of another concept or terminology that might be helpful. So I'm in my midlife crisis. I've kind of done this crazy thing of doing a part-time doctoral program, but with a university in Australia. I just can't get there anymore. But the focus has been on climate and environmental protection. And one of the concepts that I've been working with a little bit more is a little bit of a different term, and the term is durability. And I'm using that a little bit more because sustainability, resilience, and adaptation kind of fall under that to create almost the durable systems, right? Whether it's recreation or watershed or whatever it might be. And it may, I just throw that out there for discussion because maybe it becomes a different way of looking at how to, really maintain the different conditions and characteristics and assets, within the whole Sierra world that we want to do, because nothing's perfect. Some of these terms get overused a lot, and then we forget what they actually mean. But I like durability as a term, and I even went back to, I think it was the Obama administration back in 2015 even had a executive order which focused on kind of that term with respect to both economics and environmental conditions. And so maybe there's something within that concept that kind of brings all these different things into focus. Anyway, maybe something to talk about at a future meeting, or we can kind of continue to develop some of these ideas.
I'm very into the idea of exploring the use of durability, and appreciate you bringing that up, Scott, because that's something that isn't something that I've heard so much in the vernacular yet, but we'll be keeping an eye out for it.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch too on your question around how much CAMP is collaborating and engaging with the other collaboratives. So we meet with the ARCA Executive Committee up to 2 times a month. There's one standing ARCA committee meeting a month, and then the executive committee meets once a month. And that executive committee is currently exploring ARCA workshop ideas, because just as workshops are part of camp membership, an ARCA wide workshop is also part of ARCA membership. So that's something that I think actually could be convened by ARCA, and Sierra Camp could have a prominent role in, in talking about where our adaptation and mitigation efforts cross-pollinate across our regions. It would be really, interested to see how we could elevate camp's position there.
Yep, cool. Do you recall, by the way, there were I remember now, 2-3 years ago, there was an assembly bill signed by the governor that redefined the watershed as critical water infrastructure. I forget the number, 2218. I got to go back and look it up. But I don't know if it's ever been used from the standpoint of allowing almost these, I'm not saying from a taxation or anything like that from a watershed management perspective, but something that allowed defining a watershed, and you could say almost the entire Sierra and all its sub-watersheds, but I mean kind of a big block, and say that there's a place for additional, like you say, driving the agenda, so to speak, from that. And I don't know if SBC has looked into that way back when, or something that we may want to come back to say, here's something unused that's on the books, in policy and legislative policy to take advantage of. And maybe with this additional focus on climate, watershed protection, et cetera, that we're all moving towards, we could take advantage of that. And maybe through ARCA, there's a way to kind of stimulate that some more too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not familiar with that past bill. So if the bill number comes to you, I'd much appreciate it. But I'm curious whether Chris or Julia or anyone else on the call might have a stronger memory there.
Yeah, I think it was Assembly Bill 2480.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
That did that back in, gosh, I forget, before my time at SNC.
It's been a few years, yeah.
Excellent. Well, we will definitely look into that and see if there might be a strategy behind using that to drive action.
Yep. Great. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. There looks like there's a chat. Oh, got it. And if we want to talk, it seems like the conversation has kind of flown into both of these categories, but if we want to talk about workshop ideas too, some have been thrown out. We can discuss that as well.
One thing that that Scott brought up earlier in the meeting that I want to make sure that we just capture for the notes was the idea of a workshop on recommended climate adaptation tracking tools. So looking at, at all of the different technologies that folks are using now, I think that could be a really interesting idea and could be useful to a lot of folks. And then, so these workshop ideas were something that the SBC Sierra Camp team kind of, brainstormed on. I think one that's already come up was on certifying sustainable recreation, where we are now in the region, what are local governments doing to both market and protect resources through sustainable recreation. I'm curious whether folks on the call were able to attend this summer's camp workshop that was around this topic, and how, what thoughts are on refreshing that topic and kind of bringing it into this time and place.
Yeah, I think as far as the town's perspective, we definitely want to see a sustainable recreation program in place. We're just trying to be cognizant of the public's appetite for more outreach at this point. So that's something that's on our radar, definitely down the line.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stakeholder burnout going on right now. It's just been a full year of everyone cramming in Zoom meetings and all that. But at the same time, we're still finding success with the Zoom meetings and people are still attending them. So I don't know. I'm feeling the burnout. Other people I talk to are feeling the burnout, but we keep signing up for these meetings. I mean, because there's nothing else to do.
I know Hardy had to drop off, but I'm curious, I guess, for Melanie and Devin, as you have been thinking about sustainable recreation, kind of what are the key, I guess not the key issues, but like the kind of key possible, not solutions or initiatives, or, the type of measures that you're thinking might be helpful?
Yeah, I think you can, with that topic, you can really break it into two buckets, kind of the immediate, how are we responding to COVID bucket, and then that longer term thinking. But in terms of, I don't know, maybe I am categorizing it a little too much, but really it's like traffic, it's getting people to and from the recreation sites, it's the education and the stewardship of once people are there. The litter trash is a huge issue. And then I think, especially in the Sierra, well, most places, is just being able to manage across multiple landowners. When you have a recreation site where the parking lot is state parks, but the beach is Forest Service, it's tough. So that kind of cross-jurisdictional collaboration is a huge piece of it. In the Tahoe Basin, we've been doing twice weekly recreation calls since March, and those will go on at least through winter, and then they're transitioning to more future looking. Some executives are getting together, having a strategic planning workshop to figure out what direction they want to take sustainable rec, kind of what are those common visions and goals, and where does it make sense for the partnership and kind of collaboration to tackle actions? Because not everything is a solution that needs to be a group project. A lot of stuff, the landowner has to be responsible to some extent. But kind of what are those things that we do need to work collaboratively on? And I think one thing that's been more successful now considered compared to past efforts around sustainable recreation is there's a lot more buy-in from like the business community, the visitors authorities, the places that are marketing these destinations. They are more at the table and more involved because they saw how crazy it was this year. So that's been a key piece as well.
Yeah, I think Devin hit all the points between congestion and litter, and I was also going to touch on the marketing organization's interest has definitely evolved to just more sustainable marketing. I know that the Visit Truckee, the town's outreach arm, has definitely started to explore some kind of certification for sustainable recreation marketing. So that's super exciting. And I think that's something, once they explore further, we can get out to all of the regional marketing organizations to maybe figure out a collaborative approach there.
And I'd like to add something, what I heard from actions submitted by basin agencies for the Tahoe adaptation portfolio. One was about trying to figure out what is capacity. A lot of people are saying, well, you know, when it gets over a certain capacity for a state park or something, then we're going to have to cut off the amount of people that can come in. But there's some confusion about like, what's that number? Like, when is there some environmental impact that's just unsustainable? And another one I've heard is, you know, with our agency, we're just trying to figure out how to manage from year to year when the weather is always so different. Like, when do we open? When do we close? You know, some years there's so much work to do on our properties where people visit because there was crazy storms, and other years things open really early because it was a drought year. So just all that kind of flux of property management from year to year, and how do we deal with that?
Are there any other ideas currently listed from the original brainstorm that stand out to folks? Or anything that you think has just been overdone and overwrought?
I think there can never be too much business support. So I know SBC has already done a ton to help businesses in the community, but I like seeing that on the list for future ideas and how economic support and climate support can tie in together, especially right now when economic support is, you know, the main focus. So I'd like to see that continue.
Absolutely. I think something that we heard a lot, particularly in the fall, was this idea that our economic recovery could bring us to a new normal that incorporates strategic climate planning and equity across the board. And I think the idea of, you know, and whether that's by framing it in durability, but if there's a way that we can connect CAMP's efforts to the economic resilience of our region, our state, the country, I think that could really strengthen our policy positions going forward.
Yeah, I think kind of just on that note, it's great to hear that the business community has been increasingly engaged in some of these recreation and visitation questions. And I think, you know, I know especially for some folks in Mammoth and a little bit north of Truckee by the North Complex fire, that the smoke and fire, the connections between smoke and fire and business resilience, you know, have never been clearer. And building those connections and kind of expanding the umbrella of folks engaged around climate issues could be pretty exciting for our region.
Are there any other ideas on topics that we haven't necessarily broached? You know, something that came up, that Emily noted came up a lot in the member updates, was the planning for electric vehicle readiness and funding that we can anticipate. I apologize, there's a playful puppy who I'm very grateful for, but who can be a little distracting during meetings. The electrical vehicle readiness plans. Is there a workshop on engaging in those plans or preparing for state or federal funding on infrastructure around electrical vehicles be something people would be interested in? Or any other topics that maybe we've talked about today but aren't currently being discussed within our workshop framework for the year.
I'd be happy to contribute to an electric vehicle presentation. We definitely have a lot of experience up here at Tahoe working on that, but kind of broader, I mean, that could be a whole topic of its own, but broader electrification in general. I know the Placer County Sustainability Plan, the City of South Lake Tahoe Sustainability Plan both identify building electrification as actions. And I know that's going on in California at the statewide level, and a lot of cities are banning natural gas, and there's a lot of back and forth and PR blitzes from the gas companies. So that's always an interesting topic. And then kind of a little bit related to that is one topic that I know a lot of urban areas always talk about is heat island effect. And I usually just tune out on those because it's like, oh, heat island, we don't really have to deal with it much in the Sierra, but we still do. And we are having increasing temperatures, and not a lot of people have air conditioning, especially in older buildings. I don't know that it's the same challenges and solutions as urban heat island, but like, what does heat island effect really mean for, you know, mountain communities?
Brittany, this is Angel. I would absolutely support workshops on electric vehicle infrastructure, and definitely the funding piece too. I know that I just recently attended a workshop that the Sierra Nevada Conservancy was offering on better preparing for grant proposals and how to write those darn things. It's not one of my fortes, but certainly any information there would be greatly appreciated.
Super helpful, all. And then I think one of the last pieces that we haven't totally touched on, I'm sure many saw CARB's recent report on state wildfire emissions and the impacts that that's had on our climate goals. Would a workshop or focus in on wildfire emissions and criteria air pollutants, would that be of something folks would be interested in? So maybe what would be helpful would be if we could do a, oh my goodness, a poll via email for folks that would, that we can kind of incorporate notes from our discussion today and include a list of options for workshops going forward. And then we could do, we could poll and you could have some time to think about it. And in thinking about, you know, that we'll have 4 workshops this year, 1 per quarter, and that we could be strategic in whether we develop a theme that is, you know, progressive over the course of the year, or if there are 4 totally separate topics that you'd be really interested in seeing, and then we can review those internally and come back with a group of recommended topics. Oh no, I'm being pulled away.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And also, I just wanted to let everyone know that this was recorded. So if someone you know wanted to watch this or get any information, we'll post it to our YouTube and I can send out that link later. But yeah, and hopefully, yeah, we could send around kind of the notes that we gathered from this discussion, and then people can think on it a bit more. And we can send out information on our first workshop soon. But if nobody has anything else to add, I think we could just end this meeting a little bit early. Is there any last remarks anyone wants to say?
Well, thanks for leading this. It was great.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing your updates too. Yeah, just really inspiring work. And when I went to ARCA's meeting as well, it was just really awesome to hear all the stuff people are doing in COVID. And yeah, it's just a really cool opportunity to hear what folks are up to. So thank you all so much for joining.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Please
Thank
reach
you.
out if any questions come up. She was so good for so long. But then she went full terror mode.
She's so cute.